In this session, we will be covering the space planning strategies in Revit utilizing design options. You can start a design option just on the existing floor plan and create multiple variations of the floor plan all in the same model at the same time. So we're going to look at a few different ways of doing that. You can also start with an area scheme that's covered in a separate video and use that as the basis of your space plan and the first design option. So we will use the area scheme here first and then look at some of the other options, just how to create a design option from scratch. So first you would go to your Manage tab and create the first design option. This is the menu. First you create an option set and it automatically creates one option within that option set. At that point you can create new options, rename them, or duplicate existing ones, or create a whole new option set so you can independently control different parts of your scheme. And I'm going to show you an example of that later on as well. So let's just start with the first one. So how you turn on a design option is you go to the bottom of the screen where it says it's usually options are excluded, and then pick which option you want to work in. So in this case, I'm on top of my area plan and I want to put in some walls where I previously defined areas. So I'm just going to create a wall. And to make it look a little bit more realistic, we can add some doors in as well. And here. Now what you'll notice when you're in the design option, everything is grayed out except the actual walls that you are drawing. So those do not look gray, those are you can perceive them easily. When you go back to main model, everything is at the same level, but what happens now is while we can select our areas, you cannot see this is area boundary, but you cannot select the wall. So the items that are on the design option can only be selected and changed when you're in the actual design option. Also keep in mind that you cannot host things while you're in the design option if the host is in the main model. So if I wanted to put the door in a wall, I would need to make sure that that wall is in my option. So let's say I forgot about this and I started to draw some walls first. And I'm placing these while I'm in the main model. So now let's say I want to look at the different door arrangements and I go into my option set and I select a door and I try to put it on a wall. You'll get an error message, an insert in design option cannot be hosted in the element in the main model. So what I would have to do in this case, because I accidentally drew these in the main model, I would go and select my walls. And since I have multiple lines here, I'm just going to do that by using the filter command. And now under manage, I would add these walls that are selected to the design set. And right now I only have one option where you can select which set you want to add it to. So now when I go to the option, I can see my walls are now in all of them are in the option. And if I want to place a door, I can do that because my walls are now in the option. And back to the main model. So that's just a basic way of setting up one design option. Next, we're going to look at how to create multiple variations based on that one design option. Now that we created our first option from the area scheme, we're going to look at different ways of creating additional options without using the area scheme. So I'm going to just go on to the regular floor plan, and you can see that I have this one design option already drawn in here because that's my primary option. So what you see in any view, because this is a model view, it's three-dimensional, is going to be your main design option. Now, if I want to create another option, a few ways I can do that. So I can just add a new option to the set. So that's my option 2. And now when I go to that option, everything that's in the primary option is going to be missing, and I can draw whatever I want from scratch. Now, a lot of times we want to modify what we previously drew and just add onto it. So a nice way of doing that is going to the design option, and instead of just creating the new one from scratch as we did, I'm going to get rid of this one. Instead, I'm going to duplicate the primary option, and I'm going to rename it into option 2. Here I'm just using generic names, but when you're working with a lot of options, you want to make sure that you name them something that's going to make sense to you later on. Let's say you have a few different iterations and you're going to come back in a week and make selections. If you just have option set 1 and then option 1, 2, 3, option set 2, it's going to be a little bit hard to remember which one is which, and you'll have to scroll through all of them. So try to name them something that makes sense to you. Okay, so now that we did that, now when I go to the option 2, I have option 1 here, and I can say like, okay, well, let's see, I actually want to subdivide this into a couple of small conference rooms. There it is, and I forgot to put a door in here, so I'm going to add the door. And so it's just slightly different for the purposes of the exercise. I'm going to go back to the first design option, and here I'm going to add a door in the different location. So main model is always going to show my primary option. And you can create as many as you like, and you can keep duplicating the original option and making little tweaks. Now, if you're working in a couple of different areas and you might want to mix and match different arrangements, you can do that by creating another option set. So I'm going to create another option set. And now going into the option set 2, I'm going to add another unit here. You can also copy and paste within design options if I wanted to copy something I created previously and use it in my design option. Okay, so this is my option 1 of the design option set 2. And it's also primary, so it's showing up as primary. And then finally I'm going to duplicate that one like I did previously. Rename it, so that's option 2 of option set 2. You see how it might become useful to actually name things in a way you're going to remember them. Now because I duplicated, I still have my original option here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to subdivide this. And add a couple more doors. And again, when I go to the main model, I'm going to be just seeing the primary option. And you can toggle in the design option and change which one is your primary option. I would not suggest doing that until you know which option you're leaning to. In the beginning, just keep duplicating and creating additional options. Because your primary view and all of the annotations are based on a primary option, changing which your option is primary might delete some of your annotations. So what we're going to do next is see how we can mix and match and look at the different combinations in the same view. So now that we set up several different design sets, option sets, and design options within them, I'm going to create multiple views so I can mix and match different options. So first, I'm going to rename this default one to our option 1. And then I'm just going to duplicate them. And we don't have any annotations, so duplicating is fine. Since I have 2 and 2 altogether, I can mix and match into 4 different options, and I'm going to rename them appropriately. And again, you can name them something that's going to be easier to remember than just numbering if when you're dealing with your own scheme and it's not generic like this. Okay, so option 1. Let's go back to option 1. So this, right now it's showing our primary option, so option 1 of each one of the sets. If you go into visibility graphics, you can actually dictate. Right now it's on the automatic setting, so what we can choose is option 1 of set 1 and option 1 of set 2, which is not going to change anything. It's just going to specifically decide which options we want and not just the default. Now going into option 2, in the design option, I'm going to pick primary on option 1 but secondary on option 2. Now you can see we have an update. Again, going to visibility graphics of next view. Now I'm going to have option 2 of the first and option 1 of the second. And again, there is a change. And then in the final one, going to visibility graphics. So this one is going to be 2 and 2. And again it updates. So even though I'm in the main model and I cannot select the design options, visibility graphics lets you show whichever option you want in the particular view, which is an important thing to do before you place the different room names into different configurations after they're drawn, to make sure you can annotate them correctly. Otherwise, as you're going back and forth, you will be deleting your room tags, which I mentioned previously. So here, just so we can see, we have one model, same model, for different options. And of course, the one that we didn't set will always default to your primary option. So in this previous step, we set up 4 different views with mix and match design options from the 2 different sets. Now we want to add different rooms and then subsequently room tags to all of these. So I'm going to go back to the tab views, and what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to create another view for myself, and this one is going to be my working view. So here I'm not going to be placing any annotations, but it gives me a place where I can work with all of the different design options and make changes to them without changing my visibility graphics and preset views that are determined for different variations and options. Okay, so here right now we're on the automatic, so I'm going to go into my option 1 primary, and here I can place the rooms within the active walls that are in that design option. So I'm going to place the room and next I'm going to go and give these some fairly generic names. Now keep in mind that you cannot place the rooms in the design option in the rooms which walls are defined outside of that option. So do place them actually specifically within the other option, because then if you make modifications in the other options, it's going to affect the rooms. So keep them within the appropriate design option. So now I'm going to go to the option 2 here. And they're grayed out because my visibility graphics, since I duplicated the previous view, is still set on a particular option, so I'm going to reset them to automatic. And now I can see my option 2. Okay. So placing the rooms once again. And now that all of the rooms are placed, I will be naming them. You're noticing that the room tags are also grayed out because the tags are specific to the view. So the tags are not in the option. Now the room itself, which brightens when I select it, is in the option, but the tag is specific to the view only. Okay, now I'll accelerate a little bit to rename everything. And now that I have the option set 1 renamed, I'm going to go to the option set 2. So now these options are grayed out, and I'm going to place the rooms in here. And then in the option 2, I'm doing the same thing. And note that you can place the rooms automatically. Sometimes nice when you're placing multiple rooms. I do like to have control over what I'm placing. Also, you can tag on placement. So this is option you can turn on. Otherwise, things will not tag automatically on placement. So that is an option that you do have. And it's the same thing for the areas if you're working on the area plan. Okay, and now I just need to rename these rooms. And now that's complete. I'll go back to my main model, which will automatically default once again to the default sections. And it looks like I forgot to name one. So the room is when the option, but the tag can be selected, and the tag is in the main model and it's view specific. So now let's look at all of the different options we had. So we're going to look at all of the views style together. And let's get rid of our working view. So what you might be expecting to see is to have all of the room tags already there, right? Because you were just looking at the room tags in all of the different options, but that's not the case. However, the rooms are in there. So let's go one more time to individual views. So this is the option I preset before. And if I want, I can place the room tags. So this is just the room tag command, and it knows which rooms I'm wanting to place. Because again, the rooms are in the option, while the tags are view specific. So if you wanted to place the room tags in each one of the views, you would have to go through each one of the options and place the room tags. However, we didn't do that, and we're using the room tags only in the main working session, because next we are going to work on the color scheme, and with the color scheme we're going to define all of the different rooms which are in the option by applying color instead of applying a bunch of tags. So that's coming up next. If you started with an area plan previously, you know that the color schemes are defined under the room and area because they can be room or area based. In the color schemes tab, always remember to save. So here, so before you might have been in the area and you have different color scheme for each scheme set. Now we're dealing with the rooms. And you can see a lot of rooms already defined because there are some existing rooms on the existing phase of the project. So let's just make sure we'll duplicate this and we'll do scheme 1. And we'll call this the room legend. Now you can color by area, by finishes. So this is actually a way you can define your floor finishes in the room by the pattern and color actually through the color schemes. It's something you don't necessarily think. We usually apply materials. This is actually a less consuming way for Revit to do it without defining the actual material. You can go by the room number. You can use it for occupancies. So for your or possibly even occupant loads for different plans. So there are different ways of organizing it. Most of the time though we are doing it by name, and every time you change it will get rid of all of your previous color options. So we're going to do it by name, and here are some of the preset colors. So conference large, conference small, and again you are going to see all of the different options anywhere in the mall. So there's some existing stairs and the restrooms and things, but we really just added the conference rooms and the office, so there are very few options. So these are the default colors, and I'm going to duplicate the scheme one more time. So this is going to be scheme 2, and I'm going to do one of the more monochromatic ones like we talked before. And let's find our office. Okay, so 2 sets of conference rooms and an office, and none of these other ones, they're all existing. So if you apply a color scheme, it will be just for the current phase. So right now our views are phase for new construction, the things we're adding, so none of the existing things will have color, which is a good thing because it might be distracting if you have colors of the areas like elevators and restrooms that are already predefined. So okay, so we have a couple of schemes, and now you would just go to the properties, the view properties, and choose which scheme you want. So we want the rooms, not the spaces, and let's apply scheme 1 to our option 1. And then you can just run through all of the other options. And we'll apply the scheme 1. And let's look at what it all looks like together. So now even though the plans look very similar, just by the colors you can tell that in some areas we're giving the rooms of the same size different functions. Right, so here we have conference rooms and offices all together. So it's a really easy way to see how much coverage of the different things you have. And here we have a lot of large conference rooms. And in option 2, we had the room tags. So if you did place the room tags, once you switch to the color, you should select all of the room tags, and you can select all of the instances in view and just get rid of all of the tags and convey the information by color. Now, so we know what color means what. If we go to the Annotate tab and select the color fill legend, and place the color fill legend, usually place it outside of the floor plan, or if you're showing a zoomed in area like I'm showing here, place it where it's going to be visible. And let's just actually show what would happen if we change the phasing of this view. So now I'm showing new construction. If I went to the existing, you can see I have different colors for all of the rooms in the existing phase. So the color schemes are phase based. Okay, going back, and then obviously I could apply different color schemes if I wanted. So here was our more monochromatic one, where it was all the pinks and blues and purples all together. So you can customize your colors, just be maybe consistent by the room type, so all the conference rooms are within the same color range, offices within the same color range, and so on. And if you have spaces where you have zoning, each zone, like the public or the staff zone, might have its own color option. So this is it on the color schemes, and again you can have as many mix and match options. We're going to look a little bit more into the graphics and how the color schemes are applied once we place furniture in the next step. So now that we defined the rooms and applied the color schemes to the rooms, there are a couple of questions about the graphics of those rooms. So for one thing, the color can be applied to the foreground or the background. And right now you cannot really tell if it's the foreground or the background. It is actually the background because we don't have anything within the rooms to place in the foreground. So I'm going to add some furniture, and let's load a nice conference table. So place conference tables in these 4 rooms, for example, and you can see that the conference table is white and only essentially the floor, the background is has the color of the room. So this is the color scheme setting where we have our color and we set it in the background. And what happens if I put it in the foreground? It will color on top of the furniture, and it making the furniture much harder to see unless you're using really toned down pastels. So depending what you're wanting to show, if you're showing large expanses of rooms and you really don't want to see furniture, you just want to see the areas, foreground would work. Most of the time, if you're in that 1/8" scale that we're working in, keep it in the background so you can see your furniture and you can see the layouts of the rooms. Another thing to think about is the walls. So the walls are going to remain white. However, the space around should not remain white. Now that you're placing rooms, you will place the room in your circulation. So let's do that and place the room for circulation. So that's going to be in the main model because that's not on the option in this particular case. If you're working on a project where the circulation will move around depending on your design option, you might actually want to have circulation in your design option. Okay, let's get rid of the tag. So now we have this additional color. You can, if you want to emphasize circulation, have it in a really bright color, but I would suggest for most of your schemes to actually keep the circulation white, as you did with the areas where you simply did not apply anything to it. So you can actually add white. And in that case, it might be nice if the walls were not white, but they would stand out more if they were black. So you can override your visibility graphics, since we're overriding the design options and everything else, and go to the walls, and for the cut pattern, so now we have also foreground and the background options, but we're going to pick a solid fill in black. And I'm going to set that on both options. So now our walls are black, our circulation is white, and the furniture is also white and it's popping on top, so it's much more clear to see what the layout of the room is. So these are just some of the little graphic things that you would want to use and consider when you're setting up your color schemes for your space plans. Now there's a lot of customization that you can do, and it's up to you to find the look that is best for you in the future. For if you're doing an exercise in the class, this is the strategy I would suggest. Unless you come up with something really exciting that is even clearer to review, you're welcome to do that. Our last step here is going to be to um, create a schedule. And one thing I wanted to quickly review, since I was placing this furniture just for the purposes of showing the background foreground, I wanted to emphasize that since you have different room layouts, your furniture should all be in the design option. So let's correct that quickly. I'm going to cut them to clipboard, and then I'm going to set them in the design option. So paste into the current view. And what this also allowed me to do is that the other option that doesn't have this particular layout, or that I might not want the same tables in, is not going to have. So this is the same one with the same layout, but let's find one that's the other option. So in this particular case, I have the same layout of the rooms, but I'm on the option 2, and I no longer see the table. So option 1 versus option 2. This also gives you what things might look like if the circulation is in a different, brighter color. And again, it's just a very different look from the look where the circulation is white and the walls are black. So let's jump into the schedules. Schedules are created in the View tab, and this is just going to be a room schedule to show how well we did with accommodating our program. So I'm going to do rooms, scheduling building components, and make sure you're in the correct phase. So since we're drawing everything in new construction, you want new construction, you don't want the existing phase. And the things we are arranging here are just the areas, the name of the room, we're not worried about the numbers, and also the count. So we have multiple counts of certain rooms, and that might be the reason why we have multiple schemes. So we'll put this count first, and then the name. We're not filtering it, we're already filtering it for the new construction, and I'm going to show you how to filter the design options. That's actually going to be visibility graphics of the schedule. However, sorting grouping, we want it to be by name, and we don't want to itemize every instance, so we can have collapsed offices and conference rooms. And I'll show you what the difference of that is in a moment. And we're just going to have the titles here. On the formatting, we're showing everything. At the heading for the count, I like to just do the number, since it's usually just a few numbers and the count takes up a lot of space. So I'm just using the number symbol here. So it's important that the area is calculating totals. If you don't set that, you're not actually going to get the total of the table. On the appearance, I prefer no grid lines, and then you could show title. You definitely do want to show headers, and make sure it's your just standard 330 seconds text. And this is what we get. As you can see with the hashtag here, the counts are collapsed. And what this is doing is giving us the schedule. So right now it's just called room schedule. So we are going to call it room schedule based on the option that we're selecting. And right now, if you go to the visibility graphics overrides, it's actually just giving us automatic and automatic. So you do want option 3, I believe, was option 2 in both design sets. So now that we did that, we get slightly different numbers. That's the one with a lot of conference rooms. And here we can name it to room schedule. So circulation, because we're in a large space, it's taking up most space. We have 1 large conference room, 6 small conference rooms, and 4 offices, and that's giving us the total over square footage because we turned on the calculating totals. And if we scroll down to our schedule, so this is our 1 room schedule. Now once you have all of the filtering and everything taken care of, you can just duplicate this so we can create all 4 schedules. And in the same way that we did with views, we're going to adjust all of the settings for each one. This is where it would have come in useful if I was using more descriptive names than numbers, which would remind me which each option is. So, and I might remember what the different combinations is. So right now, all of these 4 schedules, all of them are the same because we're using the same, we're just duplicating the same schedule and we have same VG settings. But remember that the option 4 was actually, it was option set 1 over here. So now the numbers have changed. The total is not going to change because it's the whole floor, but we have less small conference rooms and more offices in this option. In the option 2, it was the primary and the secondary here. And then finally option 1 was the option 1 of each one. And I don't like to put automatic in case you change what the primary option is. It said, it can sometimes mess up your preset view, so this is one way of protecting against that and changing up your annotations. So here in this option we did not have any small conference rooms because they were option 1 of all of them. And again, the total is not changing, and in our case, because all the blocks are the same, circulation is not changing, but the rest of it is adjusting. I wanted to just briefly show what the difference is when you itemize every instance. Now if you're finding some kind of additional counts, it probably means you have some phantom rooms floating around, so you want to make sure in that case to itemize the all instances and make sure they all have an area. If you see a not placed room, that is something you would then select and delete that row. But in my case, they're all still correctly placed, so I'm not going to delete them. I'm going to not itemize every instance. Finally, what I might want to do here is, if I don't want to show circulation in this particular case or any particular room, you could filter by the name, and you can say it does not equal circulation. Now most likely on whatever project you're working on right now, you're trying to minimize circulation, so you're probably going to be showing circulation. But just knowing the filter option gives you one way to filter that out and decide exactly what your schedule is going to be showing. And that's it for doing space planning utilizing design options, color schemes, and room schedules.